Good morning. Welcome to Friday Morning Coffee. Please go ahead and get your coffee and pastry and have a seat because we want to welcome two people from Salvation Army. Ed Wallace serves as the Regional Resource Development Director for Salvation Army for Northeast Georgia. Ed is right here, and you will hear from him later. He has a PhD and MBA in marketing from LaSalle University and a BBA from Go Dogs, University of Georgia. Excuse me. You made me sneeze. And also welcome Mark Walker, is the Planned Giving Associate Director for Central and Northeast Georgia. I don't know what I came across. Anyway, he is a Georgia native, and he too is an avid Bulldog fan, and he moved from Savannah to Atlanta to work in the state Senate, and he has earned his Georgia real estate license also. Please welcome them as they update us on the programs and mission of Salvation Army. Gentlemen.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Well, I understand I'm the guinea pig to start this thing, and that you have not had people up here. So I like it because I'm so short, most people can't see me when I'm standing on the floor anyway. So hopefully this will help you. First of all, thank you for coming. I know it's a nice warm day and you want to lay out in the sun, but you came in here and helping us out, and I appreciate that. First of all, I want to ask you, what do you think about when you hear Salvation Army? That's what I hear. That's what it. I said the same thing to the DHQ and THQ commanders when they interviewed me for the job. I said I retired after 45 years in the mortgage industry, and then after 2 months, I had my wife come to me and she said, you know, you talked about doing service work using your skill set. I said, yeah. She said, now's a good time for you to go find something because you are driving me nuts. so I said, okay. So I got the blessing of joining the Salvation Army, and my job is to get the word out to what we do. You will probably see more outreach coming down the road in the near future from the officers, the caseworkers, head of social services, because that's the one thing that I found out. I cover Northeast Georgia, and most people don't understand everything that we do, and it's really kind of amazing. If you think about it, tragedy at Appalachia High School. We had immediate response. In fact, I think we were the first to respond to help the first responders. While we were there, we served 173 meals, 570 snacks, 245 drinks. We did counseling to the people that were there. We participated in the community effort. We, in Gainesville, at the Gainesville Area Command, we have one of the newest, I guess it is one of the newest, cantinas.
Yes.
And they took it there to prepare hot food for everybody, and it was an immediate response. Most people don't think about us in disaster. They think about us at Christmas time. But just another little thing was the hurricane that came through and ravaged Georgia. There we served a little over 150,000 meals, preparing them on site, going into the devastated areas, providing support, food, services, health care items, cleanup kits, all types of things. So that's one of the aspects that Gainesville did. They were like Georgia Power, you know, get in the truck, go down there and do what it has to do. Just here in Gainesville, to give you kind of an idea, in the last year, we saw over 5,000 individuals. Of those 5,000, 4,600 were unduplicated, meaning that didn't come back. It wasn't like a repeat. We just saw them for the first time. And that wasn't just the homeless shelter. The homeless shelter that we have in Gainesville is the largest in this area. It's also the only what is called a low barrier shelter, meaning that people that are down on their luck don't have to qualify to get into it. They can come and we're going to accept them. No discrimination at all. The only thing that we do is we do check the sexual registry, and we will not accept that because we have men housed on one side, women housed on the other, and we also have family apartments. And one of the things that kind of hit me in the face because of my age was the largest sector of the homeless population, the largest growing sector is that of people over 60 years old. And the reason is because in the last few years, inflation has outpaced their Social Security and any other savings that they may have had. I was at the shelter one day, and a lady came in with a walker. She was probably mid-70s and disheveled, and stood there and apologized for her appearance. And all of us had said, you don't have anything to apologize for. You're fine. And she said, well, it's taken me 3 days to get here, and I've been in the rain for 3 days. And so we immediately, our people, I stood there just in amazement, how they went to her, got her clothing, got her set up, got her a bed, got things ready for her for that day. And we kept her there in the shelter. I think she stayed with us for about 3.5 full weeks. And we found a relative that said, yeah, she could come live with us. So we got them out. But that's the one thing that we do at the Salvation Army is we don't just put a roof over a person's head and say, okay, you're good. We put them through a program. It's a pathway of hope. What we try to do is each individual is looked at from a caseworker perspective on what their situation is. And so we look at the younger people that maybe have lost a job, and it was a 2-earner family just to get by, and now mom, dad, and the kids have nowhere to go. And so we put them in our family facility, and we talk to them, we help them with job creation, we help them with resume writing, we help those that have maybe an addiction problem. We do counseling, we have job training, we partner with different organizations throughout the area to help. We've looked at it from a standpoint of bringing in like Lanier Tech and their tractor trailer unit that has welding classes for people to learn how to weld. We've had a great response to that because now it's given them a better job. We've helped them with basic computer skills so they understand things of that nature. One of the things I'm working on right now is to get a recruiting company to come in and give a series of seminars on how to interview if you had been homeless or if you had been out of work. You know, what questions, how to answer questions, because strategically when somebody is asking a question when they're going to hire you, you shouldn't put yourself in a position that is detrimental just because of something out of your control. And as the executive vice president of the company that I'm talking to said, is you're not lying about anything. We don't want you to lie about anything, but we want you to be able to tell people the right story so that they understand the situation. It wasn't that you just threw up your hands and quit or walked away. It was because of these circumstances. So we're helping them in that manner. Here in Gainesville, by the end of this year, we will have prepared and served 40,000 meals to the community. That's not just the people that are housed in our shelter. That is for the surrounding community. It's open to anybody who comes. And so that's 365 days a year. It's not just on Sunday, and it's not just on Wednesday night. It's 365 days a year. We're serving meals, and we're preparing meals. And so those kind of things are what we do. As far as at Christmas, a young lady sitting over here would like to go help wrap presents for the angel tree, which is fantastic. We served last year, during this time, we served 520 families, and that was 3,755 toys for children that wouldn't really have had a Christmas. And the things and the people that you see in our facilities, they come from all walks of life. I met a very nice young lady, her two children, and she came up and she gave me this big hug. She said, "Thank you so much." I said, "I didn't do anything, but I'll take the hug. I appreciate it." And I said, "What?" She said, "Well, I have been wanting a place to live. And my children and I have been living in my car for 6 months because the house that we lived in, the guy who owned it didn't keep it up, and the city condemned it, and I couldn't afford higher rent." She said, "But I figured out that I could afford enough gas, and I could keep us warm or keep us cold. And so keep us warm or keep us cool in the heat." So what she would do is each night she would go to a Walmart or some lit parking lot, and that's where they would spend the night. And then she would help them with homework by the dome light. We got her and so we had one of our family units come available. We got her in the family unit, and in less than a month, she had moved into permanent housing because we had helped her with some computer skills that she was lacking. She got a better job, and she moved into a permanent housing. And so that's one of the things that we try to do. We look at it from perspective of how can we help people get back into the flow of society. 90% of the people that you see that are homeless don't want to be homeless. Actually, it's probably about 95%. There are those in a very, very small segment. They like living on the street. They have become accustomed to it. They come to us on cold nights like last night, but they don't want, that's it. They're fine with it. But 95% of the people, they're working hard every single day. And in our shelter, right now, approximately 65% of the people are working. They have minimum wage jobs, but they have to make a choice. Do they buy their medication? Do they buy different things, or do they pay rent? And in the Gainesville market, the Athens market, the Atlanta market, the Augusta market, as you know, housing costs have skyrocketed, as well as rent. And so trying to find a place to live is tough, really, really tough. And one of the things that I hear a lot is people say, "Well, why don't they go to Section 8 housing? Why don't they go to government housing?" Well, that's great. The only problem is that 98% of all government housing is already occupied. So there's only 2% that at certain times is available. Section 8 housing, there's not enough of it because of the restrictions the government has on the builders as well as the mortgage companies and how they're developed, how they're maintained, and how you have to execute different documentation at all times. The other misnomer of the homeless is that they are a threat to society, and that's absolutely incorrect. If you look at statistics, statistics show that the homeless are more they're more likely to be the victim of a crime than the perpetrator of a crime. And that's not just statistics from, say, the welfare system. That's statistics from the state of Georgia, the University of Georgia, HUD, VA, FHA, the federal government. That's nationally. That homeless people do not commit the crimes that you may think. It's a stereotype. So that's another thing that we do here in Gainesville is we focus on trying to correct the stereotypes so you understand some of the things we do. Large population. This past year, one of the largest growths is in what's the best way to put it? Unaccompanied youth have become homeless, where maybe they have parents that are not taking care of them and they run away. So that increased 15%. Families with children, they're up 15%. Veterans are up 7%. And the Hispanic and Latino community, the homelessness there has risen 55%. And the problem that you have in, excuse me, in the homeless sector that we have is just counting those people. Because most people that are homeless, they don't want to really be counted because they are embarrassed. And so when it comes time for the different outreach programs that we try to count how many we have in a certain community, it's so low because people will go hide. They don't want to be counted. Others, they don't care. But for the most part, the estimate is about 67 to 70% of the people are not counted as homeless, that really are homeless. So in our pathway of hope, we try to take each, like I said earlier, we try to take each segment of the population that we have, look at them individually, find out the problems that they have, and then give them direction and counseling to move forward and to get back into what is considered normal society. The thing that I have learned over my year with the Salvation Army is that there are so many times that they reach out and nobody knows about it. It's kind of like that secret Santa. Nobody knows about it. And it's amazing all the good that they do. I can't stand up here and take credit for it. I try to get the word out, but our officers, our social workers, and the lady that headed up the social services division here in Gainesville, I told her, you got the patience of Job. I've never seen anybody that can take command of a situation, calm it down, because people that are in those desperate situations, desperate people do desperate things. And she keeps everybody very calm. She keeps everybody on the focus points. How can we get better? How can we do things better? And so that is one of the messages, and I hope that's the message that you get from us today, is that we're here to help. But we need people like you to understand the help we need. Let's see. Anything else that I could come up with here for you? The people that, here's something I thought was very interesting that somebody told me, is the people that you see in the grocery store that are kind of walking around looking at things, you can bet some of them are homeless. We have a lot of people that we connect with through the school systems. And in fact, not too long ago, we had a Hall County teacher in our shelter because she was a brand new teacher. Her husband left her. She had a child, and she couldn't pay the rent anymore on a teacher's salary. She came to us for a short period of time. We worked with her, got her connected with some housing opportunities, and she's back on her feet again. But so the people that you see that are, you think are perfect, or, oh yeah, they got this job. Just having a job, that doesn't mean that they're not going to be homeless. It doesn't mean that they're going to be able to take care of themselves with stuff. It's, that's a myth. And what I've got in the back, I have 3 different brochures. And please take them. My business cards are back there as well. As I told this lovely lady right here, my business cards are great. You get tired of it, and on a cold morning, you need to start a fire in your fireplace, you light it and put it in there. It works. It works. But what we try to do is, what I did is I brought some brochures that have been put together, very easy to understand, is to understand homelessness, what it is, who's involved in it, where it comes from, and it's how we can stand together to help fight it. And then just some general information on Gainesville, what we're doing in Gainesville, the community outreach, the meals, the Angel Tree, the people that we provide services for. So it's up to us to help those in need and not turn our back on them. And believe me, not throwing a stone at anybody, because I was probably the most guilty of the stereotype that was in my head as I was doing my my work in my career. I would see a homeless person and say, they're just lazy. They just don't want to work. They don't want to do anything. And that's not true. And boy, it was a slap in the face to me to find that out. When you see these people that just saying, thank you for giving me an opportunity, that's all I need. And they're running with it. They take it and they are going great guns. But the outreach of the Salvation Army is anywhere from trying to prevent child trafficking all the way to helping a mother and a child find their next home or find their next job. So that's kind of one of the messages that I wanted to get to you today. I'm going to turn it over to Mark. He's much better looking than I am. He's easier to listen to, and I think he's got some great information for you. And I appreciate the time today. You know, you giving up that wonderful sunshine outside, but it was pretty cold this morning, I have to admit. But I do thank you, and have yourself a wonderful day and a Merry Christmas.
Thanks, sir.
All right.
Thank you, Ed. Excuse me, good morning. And I talk fast. I don't know if I talk faster than Ed too, but I apologize for that. I'll try not to be too quick. Just real quick, Mary Bob, is Vicki in here? Okay, that's what I thought. I saw her go across and I was like, she's working. So there's something going on. Vicki, good morning too. Thank you for also helping us initially. She was our initial contact, and then Mary Bob is the volunteer leader for us for the opportunity to be here with you today. So we really do appreciate this. I just want to share a couple things. Ed, thank you so much. Ed actually lives in Jefferson, so he is much closer to this community and to Athens, both of our Gainesville core and Athens core, and kind of lives and breathes that a lot, just I guess by nature of it being close. And I'm in South Metro Atlanta area because I do travel Central and Northeast Georgia, as Mary Bob mentioned. So I'm going all the way across Columbus, Macon, Augusta, up to Athens, Gainesville, and to the state line. Excuse me. My information is a little bit more specific that I just want to share with you for a few minutes. And I do want to again just mention with Ed, and congratulations, Ed, too, because your first year, was it the end of November, like 30th? November 30. So just 1 year here, and he has absorbed so much with Salvation Army. He's also come in and really given some awesome brochure pieces here that we have. So please do take a chance and an opportunity to pick up any of those that we have at the back. I think I have some more over on this side as well, on that little trash can there, and then also on this table for my information. But I'm going to share this with you for a moment. We did not put this up on the new gadgets and everything going on here. My wife's a media specialist in primary school, so she would love all this technology and everything going here. But I'm just going to share this from my laptop information, more specific. My area is for plan giving. It's what we call it. It's kind of an old term from years ago, way back even in the 50s, that kind of thing. And then as I came into this work, the first place I started doing plan giving, or we call it also estate planning, was with Piedmont Healthcare. I was actually downtown Atlanta with Piedmont Hospital proper. And then when we started becoming Piedmont Healthcare and really spreading out, they put me into the position to create a plan giving program for the system. So I did that for about 5 years. I've been here now with the Salvation Army coming up on 5 years a week from Monday. So that's an awesome kind of threshold there too for me to get to that point. We always feel like it's really important in the work that we do. A lot of times people move around like every 3 years or so. So, 3 or 5 plus is always a good thing. And it's a great organization to be here at Salvation Army, I can assure you. I want to share with you just a couple of things about plan giving that's something that we share to think about. And this is a presentation I use for Augusta Advisory Board, for our Macon Auxiliary, which is a full volunteer group. Most of our auxiliaries, and I guess it's even all across really, I don't know if I can say that, it might be kind of putting in a certain bucket, but for our auxiliaries in Georgia, they're all ladies, which is interesting because that's kind of like a hospital too, where they have, auxiliary volunteers. But a lot of the hospitals now have gone co-ed. So they have the men and the women, which I think is a neat thing, and it's always a cool dynamic to work with the ladies and the gentlemen. But some of our auxiliaries for right now are still where they're just the ladies who are part of that group. But all of them work together to help us and support. And we're very privileged to be here today, very honored to be here at Lanier Villages, because you all have people who are very supportive of us, as kind of Ed alluded to also. And we really thank you for that. We want to focus on that to be sure that you know how much we do appreciate it. There are certain times of the year, of course, like at this time with Thanksgiving in gratitude, and then Christmas too, for celebration. But it's a time that we also want to really say thank you and to reach out to all of you. I'm going to give just a real quick little rich history here too. This is not on my little slides even. But you have several ladies, speaking of like the auxiliaries, but several ladies here have been former chairs of the Salvation Army for Gainesville. So that's very neat. And we do want to try and stay in touch and also talking with you. If you ever want to come with tours or anything like that too, you maybe want to share that with some of your residents here, and we can certainly coordinate that. Our officers are newer since June in the summer, and that's sometimes when the officers and leadership changes at the corps. And it's kind of like the Methodist Church. I'm just going to mention that because I did grow up Methodist. My wife did, all of us. And General William Booth, who founded the Salvation Army in London, England, many, many years ago now, he was Methodist, and that sort of followed that pattern, if you will, of how Salvation Army started, the way he was working with it. But honestly, with General Booth, he went into the East London area, is what happened, and went to the poorest and the most impoverished area. And then, of course, was preaching the gospel. So that is our history and how Salvation Army started for sure. There is a museum also in Atlanta. It's right off of International, I think is that road now. It's changed names a little bit over the years. But it is gated there. They've had it there for quite some time. And it's also where our training school is for all of our new officers. It's where all the cadets of the Southern Territory are trained at that school and in theology and all of the service and leadership. But there is a museum there. So if you get a chance to look that up or Google it too, or we'll be glad to help you with that. I've been to the tour there and to some information, but it has some of its own self-touring too, that we would certainly like to encourage you to take a look at that if you get a chance or if you're over that way. But I just wanted to mention that about some of our former chairs, because that says a lot here about your community. And that's a great thing. Our current chairman right now is Marsha Hopkins. And you may know of Marsha also. She does a lot in the community, very involved with Rotary and other organizations too. She and her husband both are. But Marsha is a great leader for us too at this time. And she certainly thinks very highly of all of our former chairs, especially here at Lanier Village. I'm just going to share for a few minutes here because we still want to have a question and answer with you. And so I want to tell you a little bit about on the legacy giving, is what we basically would call it. And you probably have heard of Leave a Legacy, is what they call, it's a national phrase. It's a national movement, if you will, from years ago. I think they did this back in the 80s or 90s. And I'm going to just kind of share with you how it kind of lines up with what we do in our planned giving area. So the planned gifts, as you know, they're long-term estate gifts. They're ultimately for your hometown service area. It's to benefit still in your local core area and your local area of service, which is also, for us, it's Barrow County, especially because of Appalachia, like you mentioned. And then the other county is are two other ones, Banks? And Forsyth, okay. So yeah, Banks County too, for sure. So that always is to stay with your area of service is what we look at when we're working with folks on their estate planning. A lot of people, just as a quick note, I'm just going to give you a couple of really important little tidbits, if you will, to kind of think about, or if you just put it in the back of your mind to say, oh, let me think about that, or I've thought about that before. Sometimes people try to make sure that they're protecting their estates and everything that's going on in that and for the future. But there can be unintended consequences at times. And of course, on our side of that, we see that because we also work with the professional advisors in your communities. That's a lot of my work too. And we do get people that reach out to us, Merrill Lynch, Edward Jones, all of those different areas, they'll reach out to us and say, I also have someone here, they're anonymous, but we want to let you know that they want to include the Salvation Army. So that's what I basically wanted to share with you to think about for leaving your legacy. For the charitable part of it. We're not experts on actual estate planning itself. And we've had a big thing with that over in Augusta, where a couple of guys were like, okay, it says in your information and some of your material that may say about having expert planning, but we're not attorneys. We're not those professionals like that. And we always encourage you to still speak with all your professional advisors. So we don't claim to be that, and certainly hope that folks don't misunderstand that or think that. But the collaborative effort that we work with on estate planning, though, is with our officers, as Ed mentioned, for the cores, our advisory board members, as I just mentioned too, and about the former chairs. All of those folks are very helpful too with us making contacts and connections. And as Ed said, we're right here with our cards today. So you've got our phone numbers, our mobile numbers. We are remote home offices, so we are not in the divisional headquarters. We always say DHQ and THQ, and I know we're not supposed to talk about acronyms because everybody's like, what is all that? But territory headquarters is the big Salvation Army building that you see on North Druid Hills exit on I-85 going right into Atlanta. That covers all southern U.S. territory. So there are about 8 to 9 proper states in the southern territory, and it's all from Texas all the way over Georgia, Florida down, coming up, Carolinas up to the Potomac is what they call it now. It used to be a D.C. area, but it stops at the Potomac area. So it covers a very large, vast section for U.S. Southern Territory. And that is a big building and a lot of officers there running the southern area. The divisional headquarters is in Norcross, Georgia, so it's right there at the Jimmy Carter exit. So just so you know kind of how it's set up that way. But we are also out in our own remote home offices so that we can really be right in the region and covering what's going on there and what's necessary to help out. I mentioned just quickly about professional advisors, which I'm going to give you an example of that in just a second. I have just a few more minutes, and then we'll do question and answer. I just shared about the territory headquarters. I'm just clicking through on this. I do want to mention, this is just something because of my work and from my experience in the 5 years with Salvation Army. I didn't come across this as much when I did healthcare or state YMCA of Georgia, which is how I started my career 36 years ago. I think it is now, at least 35. But that's why I came back to this area, because that's where I actually started working with state YMCA, which was How I Try, How I programs. and co-ed clubs. And we did youth leadership development. So I worked with a lot of folks in all these counties that helped us do fundraising as well as programming for that. But I never came across this until I came to Salvation Army. This is just another little tidbit note. Salvation Army, the way it needs to be worded, if you do include Salvation Army in your state plan, it's really important that we do include to say Gainesville Corps or very specific for operating purposes or for programs and services. That can be shared with your attorneys or your professional advisors, and I can share that with them. We can just do that through emails. That's what they mostly ask. We get a lot of calls. I got a call from a gentleman out in Franklin County, and I think it was the attorney. Maybe actually the donor called me first, and he was on the way to the attorney and was like, hey, I need some wording to be sure this is exactly like I want it to be so that it goes to Salvation Army. But especially if they want it to stay local, then we need to be sure we include that very specific. Because you can imagine, the reason is Salvation Army is global. We're humongous. It's international, many years old. And so it can be divvied up in a lot of different percentages and ways. So it's important that we share that with our donors and with the people who are really wanting to be sure it's going to have an impact locally especially, or it could be Georgia Division or however you decide that. But I wanted to share that because that's something very specific. And then the attorney, actually, by the time the donor got to his office, I guess it was either in Royston. Yeah, he was in Royston because I used to travel that area with Y too. But when he got there, the attorney called and he just goes, hey, I need your magic words. And that was all he said, basically. And I was like, okay, well, here, I'll send that to you right now so you'll have that information. So that sometimes people don't wait till they're at doing it. They'll go ahead and plan it ahead of time, but we can share anything you need like that. I want to share with you just real quick about options for wills and trusts. We just share this as part of our information and in the specialty area that I work. There is a freewill.com. There is a trustandwill.com, which I probably would recommend them for sure too. Trustandwill.com is a good one. There's a LegalZoom online will. And I know I'm kind of sharing this. We get questions too about people having to pay or, with working with the specifics on their wills. I'll just share with you, it's going to cost some, and it does. And we understand that and we know that. But sometimes people are trying to figure out another way that we can do it, but I just wanted to share a few of those pieces with you. But we actually now have a new service through our organization. It's called Crescendo Interactive, a software we use, but it's called Crest Will. So we've just started using it. Actually, I just started bringing it up to look at it so that can also help some folks. So it's just not completely astronomically costly. I just kind of mentioned about the importance of planning and that you want to be sure things are in order as much as you can. It doesn't have to always be revised, but it's a good idea to kind of go back and just revisit things at times. The considerations about healthcare decisions, there are things that are included in that too when you make plans for your estate, and even for financial healthcare, the directives. Just real quick on the professional advisors. These are bankers, trustees, financial advisors, your accountants, attorneys, estate attorneys especially, but general attorneys also can help us, and then life insurance agents or brokers. Brokers come into play a lot too with EDS because of outright giving, that they can help on those, like with stock gifts, and especially right now with it being end of the year giving, that's a big piece too. And those folks always need exact information in our EIN number. They always want that specific charitable number because of the charitable giving, and that's highly important for you too to get that with the tax deductions and write-offs. We do one-on-one meetings with all these folks too, and then we also have groups that we are part of. There's a Central Georgia Plan Giving Council that I'm a member in Macon area. Northeast Georgia has a Plan Giving Council. So these are groups of professionals that are in those associations. And that's important for us in the communities to be there and to be involved too, so that they know we're there to help represent the nonprofit and with Salvation Army specific. Last few pieces, there are some other things that we don't get into a whole lot unless somebody really asks, but there are things like charitable remainder unit trust. There's charitable remainder annuity trust. Another big one is charitable gift annuities, but of course, the biggest and largest percent, kind of like really almost 95% is through wills and estate plan. But we do have folks that do charitable gift annuities, and they like that. They can go ahead and set it up from if it's $25,000 kind of gift and set the payouts for them for life. One of the more recent things too is donor advised funds. That's a big thing now. The reason I mention it is just because Salvation Army is so large that we actually have our own donor advised fund too that we can set up for you. Most of those are done through community foundations, which you have a very strong community foundation here too in the community, in the area. But we also have donor advised funds through the Salvation Army that's been established the last few years, really, since I've been here. And as I say, it's the whole big organization, so there's a lot that carries behind that. One of the last things here, qualified charitable distributions. We just received a very nice gift from right close here, and that's a distribution that's made in the year at times that people want to go ahead and do that before that year finishes out. And a lot of folks at certain ages now, I think this age has actually changed from 70 and a half. I think there's another age they've just put in, and this comes from Congress, and they are continuing to change these years and dates and the amounts. So those can be made though, and that's another tax deduction piece that you can use. It's pretty smart and something that's really good to do, but at a certain age you have to start making those kind of distributions anyway, and that is by law. One of the last things I want to mention is about surveys that we have. We use surveys, and Ed and them, and even our officers, a lot of times they don't really know that the survey may go out. It's like a little 4-page piece, but it's based on continuous and consistent donors over a period of time. And so then the survey may go to that donor and just ask a few questions too to help out with. So we find people a lot of times that we don't really know are out in the community like that, but they'll respond in a survey. And if anybody takes the time to do surveys nowadays, that's important. And that says a lot when somebody is more committed that way. So we appreciate that. And we get a great story section. There's a little paragraph lines there that says, can you tell us your story about Salvation Army? And we learned so many wonderful things. I just kind of enclosed to say that I've worked in several different kinds of nonprofits, but Salvation Army is the most passionate donors that I've ever seen in my 36 years. They all have history. A lot of them have a history with the wars and with veterans, with military and their family, grandparents, great-grandparents. We hear lots of stories with people who will say, my great-granddad was, over in Europe, and there was coffee and a donut for my dad, or when they were all there with their troops and in the trenches and with the lassies, that's what they call them. There are different names for the ladies who helped do the donuts and the coffee way back then, but we usually call it lassies. We do have a National Donut Day. I think it's June something. It's like a first something in June. Maybe it's not June the 6th, because that's another historical date. But anyway, it's still in there at the beginning of that area. And a lot of folks just always go back to that and remember what Salvation Army has done for them. But we'll get a lot of stories here in Georgia, even that people were in Texas, they had to get home, or they were trying to get a bus ticket, and Salvation Army would pay for it and sent them home, or got them home from, out west to east. So a lot of very heartwarming stories, and it's made a huge impact on people's lives, and they remember it. And so we appreciate all of you again. Thank you for letting us come in and speak with you. We're just a little bit after Mary Bob before we were going to do our Q&A, so I'll let you go.
Please wait for the mic. Go ahead.
You mentioned General Booth and the beginnings of the Salvation Army, and I know there are still Salvation Army faith communities that worship.
Yes.
Can you speak to what the faith-based component, if there is any, of your work now? Can you speak to that?
Yes, ma'am. I'm actually supposed to be able to repeat the mission statement. It's in our brochures. I know right here, all of these pieces. Oh, and I did want to share, we have a war cry too. This is a little magazine. This is a really neat one for December. And then this is our disaster report too that kind of Ed alluded to. All of our material, a lot of it has the mission statement there. But, and Ed, you can chime in with me too on these Q&As. But it's basically to tell you that we support, and the way that the mission is set up, even with our officers and leadership, is spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ, and it's without any discrimination. It says with non-discrimination is the very last part of that. But it's to say that we are all inclusive, we support everyone, and we accept and bring in everyone as preaching and sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ. as Lord and Savior. And the churches are the cores. So in any community that we have a core, which is Gainesville core, Athens core, that means there is a church there, is actually what it is. And that took me a little bit of time to learn that. I thought a core meant like an administrative office or shelters. But if it's a core, it literally means that we have a church here. And our officers are preachers. Is that the best way to say it? Or pastors. But I mean, they preach the gospel. And
On Sundays.
That's what
Yep.
they're about. They're first and foremost, they're the pastors.
Exactly. And if you look at the the history of the Salvation Army, it started with William Booth, who was a Methodist minister. So we have that component, but we are more of the universal church in that we preach the gospel of Jesus Christ in everything we do. But the things that we focus on, of course, is like William Booth did, to go to the people that need it the most and go into the communities that need it the most.
And I noticed you have the Christian flag here also, so that was the first thing I saw too, but we always have all of that as part of our churches. The chapel at Gainesville is right up the hill, is what they call it. There's an administrative office right there at Dorsey Street, as we spoke about. But the little chapel, it's not little really, it's a nice little chapel, but it's up the hill there. And actually the brand new Southern Territory commander, when he first came in, he and his wife, and again, that's another big piece too, to remember with Salvation Army is you have husband and wife officers. That always goes pretty in tandem, always. And we respect that as much too, that it's both very equal. They share different responsibilities, but you always have the husband and wife officers, and they both will take turns and preach and do the ministry.
Any more questions?
I've been aware of the Salvation Army probably for 70 years, and I don't know anything about it, to be honest with you. But when I hear the term Army, I hear uniforms. And I see people in Salvation Army uniforms. And why are you in civvies?
I'm not an ordained minister. All the officers are ordained. They've gone through seminary, and so they are the ones that are the ministers. Oh, you can't hear me? You can't hear me? Oh.
Move over to the
Oh, if I go closer, sorry.
Oh, you got to get in the camera. Ed.
Oh, sorry. Okay. What I was saying is that all the officers are ministers. I've not gone to seminary. I am not allowed to wear it. Like I can't wear a Marine uniform or an Army uniform or things of that nature. It's when you see the uniform, that is the minister. They're ministers of the church, and so they conduct services on Sunday morning, and in their outreach, they do a lot of what's the best way to put it? Spiritual enrichment at the same time. But that's why we're in the coat and ties. We're the civilians.
Yes, and so moreover, the officers are in the uniforms, and no one else would be in the uniforms until they had that training and go through the cadet school. It's a 2 year, it's at least 2 years.
2 year cadet
It may
school.
even be a little bit longer that they do that training there.
Yeah.
Now, do you accept non-cash donations? In other words, materials, household goods, and things of that
Yes.
nature?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
Well, about a year ago, we were going through a downsizing operation, so I had to get rid of a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I got it over to Dorsey Street. But I had a hard time finding it. Anybody telling me where it was, I had no idea. And also what I found is that there just wasn't much opportunity for them to accept non-cash donations. So my question is, where would I go to give you a chest of drawers or wherever it is?
You would go to Dorsey Street, and I understand 100% where you're coming from, and that's changing. That's one of the initiatives that I'm working on. The new officers are very aware, excuse me, that the acceptance of non-cash donations was not very good. One of the things that happened here in Gainesville before my time, was we had a thrift store with trucks that would go out and pick, and they closed the thrift store a few years ago.
Yes.
And when they did, they got rid of the trucks and everything, so we weren't able to go out and pick up things. And people even thought in the community, Salvation Army left because they didn't see that store. Well, we're in the process of going through the assessment of putting another thrift store in the community. And then at the same time, I'm trying to find a box truck that we can use to pick up things. But yes, 100%, I know right where you're coming from. I've had that question asked to me. The first day I was employed, and it was one of those deer in the headlight looks, like, I have no idea. So that, I wanted to seek that out, but that's what happened.
Just a comment to add to the non-cash donations. You better check before you go to one of these stores, because there are certain things that you think they'd obviously want and need, cribs and stuff like that, but there are a lot of rules and regulations regarding those kinds of items, so they're a little bit selective in what they take. So I guess check the website or whatever before you go.
You could call the Corps here in Gainesville. The crib thing probably won't be an issue anymore because we're partnering with a child care facility that's on site now. And so there's things that maybe we didn't take in the past that we will. And like I said, the further down the road we get with the redevelopment and the reopening of a thrift store, it will allow you to either bring it to the store itself. We'll have trucks that can come pick it up, and you can also shop in the store.
Okay. Different question.
Yes,
and
sir.
I was late coming in, so I'm sorry for that. You talked a lot about homeless, and that certainly is a huge issue everywhere. How do you connect with the other homeless missioned charities in, let's say, Hall County, so that you're kind of evenly servicing those in need?
There's a homeless commission, and we're a member of it. We also have an interchange through technology that we work with United Way. We work with different churches in the area. We work with the Hall County school system. We work with Hall County government, and the police department. The different law enforcement agencies in the area are all part of this community. And so we interchange because there's certain things that we can do and certain things we can't do. We don't have the capability of that one of our partners does. So we do a lot of referral services that way too. So it's a total connective conglomerate, I guess is the best way to put it.
Anyone else?
When do you anticipate that the thrift store might be up and running?
I would say it's probably going to be sometime either late 2025, 2026. It's because one of the things that we did is, from my understanding, is when we got rid of the thrift store, we sold the property. So when we said we have to find a property, one, that can facilitate what we're looking for, two, that we can afford, and three, that's in a location that allows for good traffic. Because it's just like anything else, if we have a thrift store and nobody comes, then we can't sustain it. So we want to make sure that it's in a good traffic area as well.
We're going to just mention too real quick that there's a study. There was a study conducted a while back for the Gainesville area, very specific. And our boss's boss, we both have different kind of boss, and then there's a main boss. And he was at the last meeting for Gainesville though. So he's really working on that to bring that study back. But a lot of that information there is exactly what it's addressing. And what you are asking about, it does address those issues that were part of that study. It was just a few years back, maybe 3-ish, but there's been some change with the leadership and the officers. As you may know, that we had a retired couple that came back in for just a little while from Florida, and now we have the new couple, though, that's here since June.
Thank you for coming. What percentage of your budget annually is used for administrative costs?
It's a fair amount.
It's kind of I would say, was it 20?
It's probably a little less, I think 18%.
I think it's 18%.
On the percent, but it's a very small
Very
percent.
small percent.
Compared to,
Yeah.
well, a lot of nonprofits even as well, though, of course.
Yeah. That's one of the things that you can go online and look at as far as the different nonprofits and how much is actually given to the services that we provide. Ours is, I think it's like 86.
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
86%.
Yes, for programs and services.
For programs and services. So working for the Salvation, I'm not getting rich, let me tell you.
Well, and our officers are not paid either. I did see something was on social media, which I try to avoid reading all that stuff because, wow, people just really put stuff out there, and I guess it doesn't matter because I didn't know people won't say as much. But somebody did put a note about, they said on it, I'm really quoting something out I never on TV, but it said something about the president of Salvation Army. Well, number one, there's no president of Salvation Army. There's no such thing. They are the officers. As you said, they're commanders. And all of the officers, they have quarters, is what they're called, where they live, which again follows General Booth's mission and the structure of the Methodist Church. It was the same thing like where you had parsonages. So they have a quarters, and that's part of their support, you know, with their families. A lot of them have young families. Our couple here now, which we do hope you are going to be able to meet soon, they have young children.
Yeah, I think they have 4
Yeah, so.
from this tall to this tall. I saw them running around, you know,
Yeah.
when they're out. That's the one thing about the officers, they don't really get a day off from serving. They are 24/7 all the time, so it's amazing. Any other questions? Great questions, thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your coming. And don't forget the brochures. Are you, what?
Do you want me to do a couple of these? Can I do that real quick?
Oh, that's
Yes,
right. I
this is like a
forgot.
little-
Absolutely.
Yes.
Your door prizes.
These are little
folks.
door prizes, just real
Okay.
quick. And I know Mary Boss, we don't have numbers that we passed out. We didn't try to do all of that. But so let me do this, and we do have just a few minutes. We're not going over time for you. Okay, so a quick question. Who has a birthday today? Who has a birthday close to today? Anybody? Nobody's in December. Wow, there's no December birthday? All
Well,
right.
nobody gets a prize.
What should we try? What else? No birthdays. All right. Let me ask you this. Who here used to live, and I'm going to say furthest, I guess that's a British term it said, I looked it up yesterday, or farthest is the American term, from here in Gainesville. Who lived the furthest away before you came here to Lanier Village? What's Michigan? Oregon. Okay. Is that it, Oregon? Okay. All right. Now these are South Georgia from my family. Pecans we call them. I know y'all say pecans, but but if you can't do that too, I have something else up here if you want something instead of the nuts. But a lot of folks like the pecans or pecans. All right. Who has traveled the furthest or farthest from Lanier Village lately?
Lately?
Yes, lately. Like in the last year or so? You really? Okay. All right. She got it. Okay. You want the pecans, or I have other stuff too. Here's a mug. We have. Okay. Most people like this, especially at this time of year. Yes, ma'am. Sure. Thank you. Let's see. Who has rung? Here, go ahead. Who has rung the bell for Salvation Army red kettles at Christmas time? How many of you rung the bell? Okay, let me see your hands again. That's good for us to see. How many? You've rung the bells. Okay, how many times have you done that? How many years, maybe, over the period of time? Oh, wow. All right.
This is my 11th year.
Okay, well, I'm going to give him the other bag of. Is that good with the pecans? Okay, all right, very good. And then let's see. I think that's the last thing I had there. So 20 years, you said? That's awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, thank you all for your service for us. We appreciate the support, and we really do thank you for the opportunity to be here today.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you again. We appreciate it.
All right. I gotta
Yeah, we can.
get rid of this.